let's take a look at graphing relationships and look at some common linear and curvilinear patterns that you may encounter in social research. The relationship we looked at in the mean comparison analysis, the relationship between GDP per capita and political rights and freedoms, is a direct relationship, a relationship that runs in a positive direction. Sometimes you hear direct and positive. They're synonymous terms when you talk about relationships. An increase in the independent variable per capita GDP is associated with an increase in the dependent variable political rights and freedoms. Here's a graph of that relationship. You may recall the mean comparison table. Those with a low GDP per capita were down in terms of the scale score of political rights and freedoms. We're down in the high fours. I think it was 4.8 or similar. And as we went across values of the independent, the rights and freedoms index increased to 10. And you can see at every time you increase the value of the independent variable, you're also increasing the value of the dependent variable. So it's a direct positive relationship. The earlier relationship between age and support for same-sex marriage is an inverse relationship, a relationship that runs in a negative direction. So inverse and negative are synonymous in this context. An increase in the independent variable age is associated with a decrease in the dependent variable, the likelihood of supporting same-sex marriage. Here's a bar chart of that relationship, very similar to a line graph, except we use bars instead of a line. And you may recall among the youngest cohort, those 18 to 30 years old, the support for same-sex marriage was just a little bit over 50%. And then every time you increase age, the percentage saying allow same-sex marriage decline. So it's a inverse or negative pattern. The likelihood of supporting same-sex marriage declines as age goes up. Now, both of the relationships we just looked at are linear, are very close to linear. What does this mean? An increase in the independent variable is associated with a consistent increase or decrease in the dependent. It may not be perfectly consistent, but those relationships are very close. Every time you increase the value of the independent variable, the dependent variable either increases by a fairly consistent rate or decreases by a consistent rate. So the term linear captures that relationships. Now, of course, many relationships are not linear. They're nonlinear or curvilinear, and some of these are quite interesting. The relationship between the independent variable and the dependent variable depends on which interval or range of the independent variable is being examined. So let's look at a couple of common patterns here. As one moves across values of the independent variable, the relationship might remain positive, so it's still a positive or direct relationship, or negative, inverse, but change in strength or consistency, from strong to weak or from weak to strong. So you may be looking at what essentially is a direct relationship or positive relationship, and you may be looking at a relationship that is essentially a negative or inverse, but you can see changes in the strength of the relationship across values of the independent. Now here's a mean comparison. This is an analysis of the relationship between age, independent variable, and a scale that measures social disconnectedness. And you can see in the margin of the table, it describes what this variable involves. You know, people who, social disconnectedness with people who don't socialize with neighbors or friends or family, who are, as the name implies, become disconnected from a social milieu. And this essentially is positive. As age goes up, disconnectedness does increase, but notice how rapidly it increases between the two youngest age cohorts. Then it increases at a milder rate between the second and third cohort. And then when you get out to beyond the third, it's a very mild, still positive relationship between age and disconnectedness, but now it's a much milder gradient than at the earlier, among the earlier younger cohorts. Or, as one moves across values of the independent variable, the relationship may change direction. Now, these are really interesting when you discover these. Usually, you're not expecting to find them, and when you do, they they invite explanation on their own. The relationship may change direction from positive to negative, or from negative to positive. Now here's a crosstab. This is presidential vote choice in 2012 by income quintile. A quintile is a fifth. So respondents, voters down here in quintile 1 are the poorest or lowest income 1/5 of the population. Here's the next increase in income, the next quintile up, the second quintile. Here's the middle income quintile, quintile 3, and then the next highest, and then the richest quintile here is quintile 5. And let's analyze this data. We've set up the table according to the rules of cross-tabulation analysis. You can see, for example, that 69.2% of the poorest quintile voted for Barack Obama. That drops in the next richest quintile to 56.5. Let's go up another quintile. It drops yet again to 47.1 among the middle income group. And then something interesting begins to happen. When you get to the second richest quintile, if you were, quintile 4, Barack Obama's support, it ticks up by about a percentage point. And then among the richest quintile, it increases yet again to 50.3. You can see here, that's interesting. Like it's a negative relationship until you get to the middle, and then it turns positive. As income goes up, the support for Barack Obama increases yet again. Here's what it looks like graphically. And you know, this is quite unexpected. You may think of some plausible explanations for why it is. Why does it look this way? Why is it that the traditional relationship between income and vote for the Democrat follows tradition here as you move down until you get to the third quintile, and then things stall out and support for the Democratic candidate Obama increases again. Very interesting.